Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today I've got a list of things that we all need to stop saying to people who identify as either bi or pan. Number one, oh, that makes you greedy. I've had this said to me by people who think they're being funny, by people who think that that's just the way that it is. Beyond the super intense sexualization of the people you're saying this to, this is also just flat out wrong. People who identify as bisexual are not just greedy and don't just want everybody. What? The idea that someone elects to be attracted in any way to anyone or to any group of people is not accurate. Like, that's not how that works anyway. Secondly, it's rude and it's honestly demoralizing the person you're saying it to. I've had this said to me by friends before that think they're being funny, and sometimes I try to educate them on this and sometimes I just don't. But you see this idea online, you see it in some of the comments of some of the videos that I've done about being bisexual. It's like there's this idea that you have to pick one, which is absolutely ridiculous. If someone's in a monogamous relationship with someone, they have picked a person. They didn't just pick that person because they're a certain gender. They didn't just pick that person because they have a certain romantic or sexual attraction. They picked that person for so many reasons. You can't boil it down to just one. So assuming that someone who is bi is identifying that way because they're greedy and want whoever they want really, really does boil that person down to a very base, usually not accurate attribute of themselves. Which leads me to my next one. You just need to choose. There was a comment on this channel recently on one of my bigger bisexuality videos, and they said,
you just have to choose. You like Ford and you like Chevy, just choose one. You like baseball and you like football, just choose one.
And on and on and on, all these examples of choosing one, which makes zero sense when it's applied to someone who is bi. As I said, when you elect to be in a relationship with someone, you're choosing them to be in a relationship with. If you're poly, you're choosing them and someone else, potentially, to be in a relationship with. What exactly is the point of saying just choose one? Why? Like, why is that a thing? The idea that someone is potentially attracted to anyone is not a problem for you. What does it matter to you? If you do not want to be in a relationship with someone who could potentially be attracted to anyone, then that's on you. The whole idea of just choose one boils everything down to exactly what my video was 2 weeks ago about compulsory sexuality. The assumption is you are looking for someone to have sex with. The idea that all the people out there that you're looking for are just people to have sex with very much does not apply to the majority of people who are bi, or really the majority of people out there, according to certain statistics that we have at this point. But perpetuating this idea that you just have to choose one, like, I still go back to that question as to why? Why? I've never gotten a real answer. Next, and this isn't so much said as implied, but it needs to stop being implied, that you're gonna cheat on your partner. This idea that because you're potentially attracted to numerous people out there means that you're going to cheat on your partner is so unfounded and also so rooted in the idea that our identity is all about sex. If you are polyamorous, that doesn't mean you're also pan, and vice versa. If you're bi, you're not always polyamorous. People enter into ethical non-monogamy for lots of different reasons. It's not a foregone conclusion just because you're bi. And in reality, this statement isn't even about polyamory. It's about cheating. And so cheating means going outside of the rules that are established in your relationship. Whatever that is being unfaithful to your partner then. That can look different ways to everybody. But the bottom line is, if you're in a monogamous relationship with someone else and that person happens to be bi, the threat of anyone being someone they're attracted to is a mirror into your own relationship and a problem you have in your relationship. You don't trust that person. And whether you don't trust that person because you have a misunderstanding of what it means to be bi, or you don't trust that person because you've been cheated on multiple times, or you don't trust that person because you don't trust yourself, I don't know. But that's between you and your partner. That's not a rule across the board for anyone who identifies in that way. It's just not. This next one is a personal favorite of mine. It is usually posed in this way.
Okay, I get that you're bi, but you have a preference of one over the other, right?
So not only does that question leave out anyone who's non-binary, but it also again, reduces someone's attraction to other people just to their parts, just to what they can do together. And the idea that someone who identifies as bisexual has more of a preference to certain types of people than others is no different from someone having a preference for someone who, I don't know, enjoys the theater over someone who doesn't. So somebody who likes theater is likely to want to be with someone who also likes theater, right? People that I talk to about myself see the fact that I'm married to a woman as me having more of a preference for women over men or people who are non-binary, which doesn't necessarily make sense to me and doesn't actually matter because I'm married. So who I have more of a preference for outside of my marriage would only matter if we were practicing ethical non-monogamy. As a monogamous person, I don't practice that. This idea that I have to have a preference, this idea that somebody likes one more than the other, again, boils everything down to parts and sex and sexuality, instead of understanding that the real base of someone, the real definition of someone who's bisexual, who's pansexual, is a potential attraction to anyone. That doesn't mean they're attracted to everyone. That doesn't mean they're going to cheat. That doesn't mean that they have a preference either way. I have preferences for people I spend my time with because they are people that I get along with. They are people that I trust. They are people that I have fun with. Those are the people I prefer to spend my time with. Who I prefer to be attracted to isn't actually a thing because I don't pick who I'm attracted to. I pick how I act on that. Another great one is you're bisexual on your way to being gay. That is so narrow-minded in the understanding of people, of how we change throughout our lifetime, of how we understand attraction and connection with other people. So many of you know I used to work in the church. And when I worked in the church, I was a youth pastor. And when I was doing youth ministry, I used to say very proudly, very narrow-mindedly actually, that I was in youth ministry for life, that I wasn't going to use it as a stepping stone to something higher in the church. And I'm obviously not in youth ministry anymore, so that's an entirely different story and an entirely different video. But the principle that I want to call your attention to there is that we who thought that way always thought that way because we thought that people who changed their profession were selling out or not willing to do the hard work to stay in the profession we were in. And in reality, that's not what was happening. The people's opinions of their lives changed. Some people's understanding what they're supposed to be doing changed. That didn't mean that they were using where they were before. So do some people understand themselves to be bi and then understand themselves to be gay? Yeah, that happens. Also, lots of other things happen too. How someone understands themselves can change all the time. While they are maturing and growing and living their lives, there is no limit on the number of times people can change how they understand themselves. If there were, we wouldn't talk about people growing throughout their lifetime or being lifetime learners. And honestly, I for one think that everybody should be learning throughout their lifetime. How boring would the world be if we weren't continuing to challenge our assumptions about ourselves, to challenge the world around us, and to understand more and more every single day who we are? I am somebody who believes that sexuality is fluid, and if it is, why wouldn't people be allowed to flow throughout their lives into different ways of being and into different ways of understanding themselves? And if you can't get behind that for somebody, then I don't know, don't be friends with somebody who does that, or don't be in a relationship with someone who sees it that way. That doesn't mean other people can't see it that way. That just means you don't. And the last one is something that said, again, more in a roundabout way, not necessarily directly, but this idea that someone who is bisexual is able to pass as normal and therefore they should be grateful. Certain people within the LGBTQIA plus community are more at risk safety-wise than other people. You can't live in the world we live in today and not understand that. That doesn't mean that there isn't a risk in being part of the community. And honestly, in the year that we're living in now, it sometimes feels more risky than ever. So this understanding or this anger for people who don't immediately get clocked as part of the queer community when they're out in public is so divisive within the community. And I say that because the division that is out there among society as a whole about our right to exist, as we are is so damaging itself. To have it from inside the community is completely unacceptable. We cannot be questioning each other's ability to be in the community. How many times, those of you who are bi or pan, have you had someone say, well, I know you're not? And the weirdest thing for me is when I hear someone who is queer saying that. I hear someone who identifies as a lesbian saying that to someone who identifies as bi.
Well, you're not really bi, you're just doing it for attention.
Well, I'm sorry, but how many times have you had that said to you? That someone questions who you know yourself to be simply based on their own experience. It is not our job to question that part of people. What our job is to make things accessible to people so that it's not about questioning who you are and defying these norms and passing or not passing, but it's about people being able to learn at their own pace in their own time who they really are without the consequences the world currently imposes on everyone, especially the queer community. And when we expect people to choose, we expect people to perform as our expectations are for someone who identifies in a certain way. When we put those limits on each other, we are no better than the cishet people out there who want to determine that we are incorrect or wrong or unnatural because we're not cishet. Why are we doing that to each other? So those are my couple of things that I would love for you to stop saying to people who are bi. If you have more, go ahead and put them in the comments and I will definitely do another video on this. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next time. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other.